It's great to have Cenk Uygur back on the show, host of the Young Turks, author of the book Justice is Coming, and most recently, just like in the days after our last interview, also a candidate for president of the United States seeking the nomination, the Democratic nomination against Joe Biden. So, Cenk, I want to do this in parts so that I think it'll provide the most value to the audience.
Yep.
The first thing is let's talk about your eligibility. Now, whatever applies to you applies to me. In other words, I also wasn't born in the United States. I don't think I'm eligible. I think it was the intent of the founders to make sure that I not be eligible. And I think that that's wrong. So far, I think we're on the same page. I believe you should be eligible. I think Arnold should be eligible. I think I should be eligible if this was something I wanted to do. What is the state currently of you getting a ruling that says you are eligible to be president of the United States?
Yeah. So there's a couple of different issues here. So number one, there's the ability to run, and number two, there's the ability to serve.
Yes.
So on the ability to run, the FEC has already ruled that natural-born citizens can run for president. Whether they're eligible to serve is a different question, right?
Sorry, Cenk, I hate to interrupt. You said natural born. You mean naturalized, right?
No, I'm sorry. I mean naturalized. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That's right. And on top of that, now we've got the issue in the Supreme Court over because of the Trump case of can the states even adjudicate constitutional law issues like this, or do they have to put you on the ballot and let the courts decide whether you can serve or not? So that the Supreme Court imminently might come out with a decision that says the states cannot make that decision, whether it's Section 3 or Section 1 of the 14th Amendment, right? So now, in terms of where I am with the case and the second half of
Yes.
can I actually serve? So we sued South Carolina, and that's the 4th District. And at the district court level, the judge said on 3 occasions, wow, this is the best brief I've seen in a long time. This is an excellent case you guys have made. At the end, because he's at the district court level, he ruled against us. And the reason for that is you don't want to get overruled. And so the conventional wisdom is, and some cases are, that we cannot serve. So he went with that precedent rather than what he thinks, what it appeared that he thought was a very persuasive case. So I can tell you what that case is now.
So I am interested in starting this maybe with Schneider v. Rusk from 1964. Maybe that's an appropriate place to start. Now, I'm not a lawyer, right? So I'm relying on the opinions of lawyers and things that I have read. My understanding is that the Supreme Court ruled in Schneider v. Rusk that you can't treat naturalized citizens differently from natural born citizens, that that's unconstitutional. If we stop there, well, treating a naturalized citizen differently by saying they can't be president, by definition, violates that. However, I've seen a lot of legal responses and legal opinions that say that simply doesn't apply to eligibility to run for president. That's separate. It's unique. It would need a specific declaration. What do you say about that?
That part is true. So some people take it further. And so Schneider v. Rusk says, for sure, naturalized citizens, natural born citizens are 100% the same. Discrimination against them is impermissible.
Yep.
But in dictum, in just half a sentence, they say they're leaving the issue of the presidential qualification aside.
Yes.
Okay. So now some people take that further and go, that means that they thought that you couldn't serve. No, they didn't address it at all.
One way or the other.
One way or the other. They just left it to the side, right?
Yep.
So at the same time, that means that I can't say, oh, they definitely said that I could serve, because they clearly put it aside. Okay.
Yes.
So that's where Schneider left it. You really, really shouldn't do this, but we're not going to rule on the presidential issue. Okay. So now that's the Supreme Court. Our argument is because people get stuck on, well, what was the intent of the framers? What was the intent of and if you're right about the 14th Amendment, and the core of the 14th Amendment argument is, it says in the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized have equal protection and due process.
Mm-hmm.
So if you read it in its plain meaning, there's no question that we could run for president. If you go with the plain meaning theory, right? But all of a sudden conservatives are like, I don't know if I like the plain meaning theory. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but constitutional law is more complicated than that. So then people think, oh, you should look to the intent of the 14th Amendment framers then, because the original framers become irrelevant. The amendment is what's relevant. And did they really intend for naturalized citizens to be able to run for office? Well, number one, I would say yes, partly because think about it this way. The slaves were not natural born citizens. And it would be absurd to say that the slaves after the 14th Amendment couldn't run for president.
True.
Totally absurd. So I think that they actually did intend it, but there's not a lot of language in the from the framers that clarified one way or another. And the court in the Fourth Circuit said, "You're right. It is not at all clear what they intended at a minimum." Okay, so they might have intended that yes, you can serve. Now, but David, let me get to the most important part. And Larry Lessig, legendary Harvard law professor, made this point, and I think it's so compelling that we will almost certainly win on this eventually. When the 14th Amendment was passed, women did not have equal protection or due process either. They, at that point, they couldn't vote. They got that right later in the 19th Amendment. Not only that, they couldn't run for office. But here's the interesting part. After the 19th Amendment, they could vote, but they still couldn't run for office, any office. So what Lessig says is, well, yes, but 14th Amendment jurisprudence later reversed that decision, those laws across the country, and said women could run for office based on the 14th Amendment, because the 14th Amendment has been interpreted as providing equal protection to protected classes like race, gender, sexual orientation, and national origin. So it's actually, that's why the judge said so many times, man, this is a lot better case than I imagined, because no one's actually forced them to think this through. And so right now we're in the circuit court, and I don't know that we have enough money to be able to execute this in enough jurisdictions to be able to win. But if I don't win, the guy that comes behind me is almost certainly going to win.
Well, so that gets me to the next. So I think the arguments are good. I think it's abundantly clear that we need some kind of declaration. How can we be a country of immigrants and also none of them can be president? I mean, it just, and people could say, David, you have a personal interest in this. I do and I don't. This applies to me, but I have no interest in running for president. So, you know, that I'm being totally upfront about that. So then we get to the timing and the practicality. If I understand some of the things you've said publicly, Cenk, your intention here is not to become president of the United States. Part of this is about seeing what you can do on this eligibility issue and what can we do about, I believe, if your position hasn't changed since we last spoke, fixing what you believe is an impending problem with Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee and trying to improve circumstances and defeating Trump in November. Is that the primary goal here?
Yeah. So the three goals have always been the same as day one. But it gets adapted to the circumstances of the race as we go along. So I always said goal number one was not the naturalized citizen issue. It was to knock Joe Biden out so that we would have a great candidate against Trump. I think that it's malpractice to say we should take a candidate that's polling 10 points lower than the average Democrat and run him against the existential threat against democracy. I can't believe the Democrats are contemplating it. I think that they're finally going to change their mind. I think Biden is actually going to drop out at some point relatively soon. But look, I've been right about that from day one. Now almost everyone agrees, from Ezra Klein to Nate Silver. Yeah, it turns out Cenk was right. He's not going to win. It's not even going to be close. So I'm still on that war path. And I need Democrats to understand, please do not let mainstream media brainwash you. It doesn't hurt your team to have the best candidate. It helps your team to have the best candidate. It's Alice in Wonderland. Media switches things so that reality is on its head. No, he's obviously super weak and his favorability is in the 30s. Literally no one running for federal office has ever recovered from ratings this low to win an election in an election year. Ever. Okay, so that's point one, and I'm still on that. Point two is the naturalized citizen thing. It's an injustice. When I see an injustice, I can't help but try to address it. And as we just talked about, I'm very likely right about that as well, whether I win or the next guy wins. And then the third thing is to push forward progressive priorities. So In the beginning, did I have around a 1.5% chance of actually winning the whole thing if I won my court case, et cetera, if I had gotten a series of miracles? Yeah. Do I now even have a 1.5% chance? Probably not.
Mm.
Okay. But something happened, David, that makes this race even more compelling now, not less compelling, even though I went from very, very low chance to probably no chance of winning at this point.
Hmm.
So what happened was, since Biden might drop out after the primaries, then every delegate becomes worth its weight in gold. So progressives would actually be crazy not to collect their delegates in one candidate. So if you get to 15% in any state, you get delegates. And if Biden drops out, he's not going to hand it to Kamala Harris. There's going to be a delegate fight, old school conventions. This is exactly what happened all the way to 1968. There's no reason why we can't do this. There's 100 reasons why we should do this. At that point, Gavin Newsom, Pritzker, Whitmer, et cetera, are competing. The delegates, Biden delegates, are not going to give it to me. There's a 0% chance of that, right? But if progressives had 20 delegates, 2 delegates, 200 delegates, whatever the number is, then we can negotiate for something that we care about, something that the American people want. So we should amass our votes and our delegates under a candidate like me, and I am the only progressive left in the race now. So that's been my argument. And if I was out of the race, I swear to God, and somebody else was in, I'd say, collect all your votes and delegates under that person. It's so obvious. Please do that. Don't give away your power.
All right, so let's go through a couple of these different things. Now, I want to make it really clear. I just have an opinion, and it's sort of different than Cenk's. It doesn't mean I'm right or Cenk's right. We have to wait and see, right? In other words, we are making assessments based on the information we have. Am I concerned about Biden's age and effervescence? Yes, I am. Do I think it makes sense to have an answer? I don't know that I need to know it personally, but should there be an answer that the DNC has of what happens if an 81-year-old doesn't make it for whatever reason? There should absolutely be an answer to that. There needs to be some kind of plan. I assume, and I know you're saying there would be a fight, I assume the DNC would say the plan is either Kamala or it's Pete Buttigieg or it's Gavin Newsom. I assume they would have some name. I don't know what that name is. But here's where I really kind of have a different 40,000 foot view. When you look at polling in 2012 between Romney and Obama at this point, Romney on average was up 2. Okay, so it's not like a blowout that Romney, oh my God, Obama can. Romney was up 2, and as we know, Romney ultimately lost. If I zoom out, no matter what's going on, incumbents get reelected 75% of the time. If I look at the economic data, it's pretty good in a lot of ways. Unemployment sustained under 4%, first time for this long in like 50 years. GDP numbers look pretty good. Inflation's down to about 3, which is the goal. Wage growth that has actually outpaced inflation for a period. I don't have to give you the whole list, but like economy looks okay. I look at Biden's accomplishments. I see 3 major pieces of legislation: inflation reduction, the CHIPS and Science Act, we could do the list. More student loan debt forgiveness than anybody else. Wants cannabis descheduled, which I think I've been waiting 15 years for that. Now, will it happen? Does he genuinely want it? Is he doing it because he knows it won't go through? We can, right? Okay. But so he's at least asking for that. Earlier today, $6 billion towards updating water infrastructure. As progressive, we've been saying, look at water, look at Europe and look at the US. We got to deal with water. He's doing $6 billion on water to finally get these lead pipes. I could give you the full list, right? When I look at all that, I think to myself, man, that's pretty good. And usually you get reelected as an incumbent. I think it doesn't look as bad as Cenk thinks it looks. That's where I'm falling based on what I see.
Yeah. So, David, both of those things are true. Your point of view is true, and my point of view is true. So that leads people to a significant confusion.
Yes.
How could they both be true?
Right.
So let me explain.
Yeah.
So, number one, on his accomplishments, yeah, if you look at it as the low bar that we have, which is that politicians get nothing done, Democrats get nothing done, and Biden actually got 15% of his agenda done. And then you look at that 15%, and those are the things that you described, they look pretty good. And I'm super psyched about the water infrastructure, et cetera. And you could see, look, as a candidate, I'm the same way as I am as a talk shows and as a regular person. I'm honest. So I'm not going to, it's not binary. It's not 0 or 1. The idea that Biden didn't get anything done is preposterous. No, he got
Yep.
those things done and they're pretty good, right? Now, from a progressive point of view, an average person's point of view, yes, but we needed a lot of change. And you just trashed the rest of your agenda, which was terrific and really popular. But put that aside, okay?
Okay.
And in terms of the economy, I give them even better grades. I think the economy is amazing. Is it amazing for the average person? No, but that's not on Biden. Biden, Obama, Trump, Bush, they all have the same thing where the rich get even richer and the middle class continues to struggle. But within that context, Biden did a pretty good job, no, a really good job of keeping unemployment low and bringing down inflation, and he doesn't get enough credit for that. Okay.
Yep.
So, okay, then you're wondering, well, Cenk, what the hell's your problem? And that sounds like it's definitely a little bit better than the average Democrat at a minimum, right?
Yeah.
Not as good as a progressive that I would want that pushes for paid family leave, higher minimum wage, lower drug prices, et cetera. Okay. And if we got into the weeds of those policies, I think I could convince a lot of you that it's not anywhere near as good as it looks,
Okay.
even though it's an improvement on what we had. Okay, but that all of that is not the issue. The issue is whether he's going to win or not. So if you said to me, Joe Biden's definitely going to win, I'd get out of the race right now, and I wouldn't say another word about the election. Okay, not because I think Biden's great. I think Biden's monstrous in some ways. I mean, we talked about the upside. That, in my opinion, the downside, among many other things, is he's letting Israel massacre people in Gaza, and he doesn't care at all. Slaughter after slaughter after slaughter. And Joe Biden's like, who cares? How does it affect my politics? Okay. But even that, I'm saying I'm willing to live with that because I think Trump would end democracy. I'm not willing to live with it. I'm going to fight Biden 200% on it, right?
Right.
But Trump would end democracy, so I take the Biden win. But he's not going to win. So let's go to the Romney thing.
Yep.
So it's actually not true. I've looked at that graph 1,000 times because people keep saying it as if it is. Obama once dipped to around 43%. That's, I think, around the lowest he ever got, right? But he dipped there and then he bounced back up. Whereas Biden has gone straight down on his popularity and dipped all the way to 33%. An incumbent in the 40s has a very low chance of winning an election. An incumbent in the 30s has a 0% chance of winning. It's literally never happened before, not just for president, for any federal office. So as much as you might love Biden, as much as you might think, oh, they're being so unfair to him, he did a good job with the economy. It doesn't matter. What matters is he going to win or isn't he? And when you look at a guy who everyone now agrees is in the 30s, somewhere in the 30s in approval rating, a place that no one has ever gotten out of, do you think that Joe Biden is the candidate that's going to pull off a miracle comeback? And let's be honest, and this is the killer part, and this is the part that I think was the tipping point for a lot of the establishment pundits when he didn't do the Super Bowl interview. Because that is $56 million in free media. In softball questions from mainstream media, you could pick the reporter that you want. It doesn't get any easier than that. So when he didn't do that, I think it dawned on a lot of people, oh, this brother doesn't have it in him. He just will, he's not going to campaign because anytime he campaigns, it's a net negative. So the $56 million goes to Trump because people look at the interview and go, oh, not that guy. Then you can't run that candidate. If you're so embarrassed of your candidate that you can't let him on for a 4-minute interview in the Super Bowl, then he definitely should not be your candidate.
So let's run. And so every concern you bring up, I share to a different degree than you, maybe, right? So I think I don't know that I'm disagreeing with anything you're saying. I think it's where I kind of put the balance. When I think through the scenario of, okay, if Biden dies, he's getting replaced. Let's not talk about if Biden dies. Obviously, that could happen to anybody at any time. And the older you are, the more likely it is. But imagine a scenario where we say, hey, they get to Biden, they convince him, you've got to get out of this thing. Okay. Biden announces, I was going to be a transitional president. I saved us from another 4 years of Trump. I'm getting out. The next generation is going to kind of do this thing. I think Trump wins if you do that. Think of what happens after Biden makes that announcement. And again, I want you to convince me otherwise here. I want to hear the other scenario. Biden says, I'm getting out. Okay, so depending on the timing, there's a rush to finish out the primary with other people, none of whom are particularly well known or popular enough to just outdo what Trump is slowly building on his side. That doesn't seem like a winning scenario. Or Biden gets the nomination officially at the convention, and then for a health reason or for whatever reason, hey, you know what? He's going to step back. We're going to be picking somebody else. The chaos that generates, to me, seems like it guarantees a Trump win. That's my concern.
So I view it as the exact opposite. Let me
Okay.
explain.
Yeah.
Yeah. So number one, if Biden's the candidate and he doesn't drop out, and we go to the convention,
Yep.
I think that everyone will concede that will be the single dullest convention in American history, and no one will watch it. Biden is like, maybe they'll watch the Biden speech to see if he's going to fall down during the speech, or if he's going to be able to complete it. I'm being honest.
Yeah, no, ratings would be low for that. I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. Ratings would be low.
Okay, it would be disastrous. We'd get very, very little free media out of it. And remember, media decides elections. That's why Trump won in 2016. So on the other hand, if it's a chaotic convention where Newsom and Pritzker and Whitmer and Shapiro are all battling for delegates, everybody's going to watch. It's going to be the most exciting convention we've ever had in our lives. And now everybody's engaged. Should it be Newsom? Should it be Whitmer? What's their upsides? What's their downsides? And the whole country's having a conversation about Democrats. Number one, the more chaos and conflict and entertainment value you have on your side, the more likely you are to win. Look at
counterpoint to that, Cenk. What we've seen on the Republican side for a while now. The chaos with them taking out their own speaker and then putting another one in, and then their own impeachment failed. The Republicans are being hurt by the very inside competitive and craziness that you're saying would be good for Democrats.
I totally disagree, and I'll tell you why. I hear you, but first let me explain the primaries, and then I'll get to why there's a big distinction with what you said.
Okay.
In the primaries, 2016 was the craziest primary anybody's ever seen on the Republican side. They're literally talking about their genitalia on the debate stage.
Yeah.
And they won. Okay, 2020, the Democrats have a chaotic primary. Bernie wins the first 3 states. There's 27 people in the race. It's absolute chaos, and the Democrats won. Why? Because they're collecting free media for that interesting, basically show, contest, competition that they're having. So they're collecting more and more interest. And every one of the Democrats in 2020 is getting out the Democratic message. In 2016, every one of the Republicans is getting out the Republican message. So the more that people hear the Republican or Democratic message, the more they're likely to vote for that side, chaos notwithstanding. Is there a threshold at which it's too much chaos? Well, first of all, of course, anything that goes to an extreme could create a problem, right? But I think that the Republican chaos right now, the problem isn't the chaos. The problem is the ineffectiveness. Like if they had that chaos, but then they passed bills that their voters love, they built a border wall, right? The Republican voters would be like, yes, they would love that, right? So it isn't that they're drawing a lot of attention. It's that they're then face planting with it. So I hope that
I mean, I think the other
best candidate could do something amazing with it.
The other issue with framing this as in 2016, they won with what they did is Trump lost the popular vote and barely won the Electoral College because of small margins in 3 states. So to even say that it was a definitive victory on the heels of the chaos and excitement you're describing, even that is a little shaky.
But David,
a win is a win. A win is a win.
4,000 votes in 3 swing states. So the popular vote, it breaks my heart. And the Democrats, they drive me crazy. They never do anything that makes sense. Right now, the entire last 20 years, they should have been on a warpath to get rid of the Electoral College.
Yes,
that
agreed.
should have been their number one priority.
Yep.
Biden won by 7.5 million votes, but only won the Electoral College by 44,000 in 3 swing states. He almost lost.
It's crazy.
Like here's another thing that people are not taking into account. Biden is now down, depending on the poll, by 4, by 8, etc. But remember, he has to win by 5. So he's actually down 13 to Trump in some polls, 9 in other polls. There's no way he's going to make that
Well,
come.
if you look at this, but that's deceptive because you really have to look at the state by state numbers, and he's not losing by 13 in any of these states that matter. So I think we need a deeper dive on that. Let me get to maybe what the audience may be most curious about now. So you've described where we are. I've given my opinion of where I see it. What is it you want people who vote in the Democratic primary between now and the end of the primaries? What's the ask? What do you want them to do? What do you think should be done here?
Yeah. So obviously, I want you to go to cenkforamerica.com, check out my priorities, and you'll see if you're a progressive, you agree with at least 9 out of 10 of those. In fact, the country agrees with at least 9 out of 10 of those, and maybe even 10 out of 10. So, but the number one thing is we please look. If Marianne was in the race, you could make this same exact argument for Marianne, but she dropped out. So there's only one progressive left. That's me. So if it was someone else, I'd tell you the same exact thing. Please vote for the progressive. Collect your power in one person so that they could use it on your behalf. And imagine I have delegates. You think I'm going to pull a Bernie or AOC and be like, oh, just give them to the guy. Who cares? I'll give away all my leverage. No way. No, if they want the delegates, they're going to have to give us something in return. And it has to be substantial. So again, it's not like the progressive candidate, no matter who it is going to win the whole thing. Mainly it'll be establishment delegates deciding it. But if we have our own delegates, our own power, we get to negotiate for at least one thing that you guys will love. So give me the power to do that on your behalf. cenkforamerica.com.
All right, Cenk Uygur, really appreciate your time and the conversation.
Me too, David. Thank you so much for having me on, and always a great, intelligent conversation. I appreciate it.